Hey, what's up guys, Mitch here. Now, recently Apple held their WWDC conference that they do every year. Now, this is usually a software conference, but this year they released a lot of new awesome hardware. Possibly the thing that got me most excited was the new iMac Pro. Now, this is a device that looks fantastic, but will definitely have a huge price tag to go along with it, and I think it could cost upwards of $20,000. Now, this video is about where I got that number from. Let's get right into it. Now for $5,000, the iMac Pro's base price, you're actually getting a super decent computer. You're getting an 8-core Xeon CPU, 32 gigs of 2666 MHz ECC DDR4 RAM, 1 terabyte of super fast SSD storage. Now Apple kills it with their SSDs, so I know this will be super fast, possibly over 3 gigabytes per second. So for the base price, this computer will have the Vega 56 graphics card. Now I'm not really sure how powerful that will be, especially because we don't have any information on Vega, but in a machine of this class it should be super powerful. Now these specs would be hard to match building a computer for under $5,000, especially considering you get those awesome Magic peripherals as well as a 5K Retina display. Of course, Apple doesn't make their money on the base machines though. The build-to-order options is really why these machines are so expensive, and this is where Apple's insane profit margins come from. Now one quick thing to point out, Apple doesn't release their numbers before they release their computers, so these prices are pure speculation on my part. But I think they're pretty accurate, and I think that this will give us a good idea of how much this machine will cost. Now let's start off with the CPU. Apple is using an 8-core Xeon CPU for the base machine, but will allow up to an 18-core build-to-order option. To calculate Apple's CPU upgrade profit margin, I looked at the iMac, the non-Pro one that just came out too, which has an assumed base i5 7600K because of the same clock speeds, and it gets upgraded to an i7 7700K. The 7600K costs $240 from Intel's suggested retail price chart, while the 7700K costs $339. So Intel is suggesting a price difference of $97, while Apple charges $200 for this upgrade. Finding the profit margin, I used upgrade cost minus suggested cost over suggested cost, which came out to a markup of 106% for the CPU. Now for the iMac Pro, the CPUs are a little different. The Xeons now came out Q1 2016, so by the time the new iMac Pro comes out, I think those will be upgraded. We're still able to use these Xeons though because I think the prices will be relatively similar, as long as Intel sticks with the same pricing scheme and doesn't go crazy like they have been recently. So for the 8-core, a good baseline is the E5 2620V4, which is a $417 processor. And the 18-core CPU is the E5 2697V4, and it's $2,702. Which comes to a difference of $2,285. Again, adding on the 106% markup, Apple should charge around $4,707 for the 18-core upgrade. Right off the bat, adding the CPU brings the price of the computer to $9,706. But boy, are we just getting started. Next up we have the RAM upgrade, which used to be the cheapest upgrade because you could do it after you purchased the computer with third-party RAM. Now unfortunately this is no longer the case, allegedly due to the new iMac Pro's cooling scheme. Unfortunately though, this is probably just Apple upselling you somewhere else. This means the only way you can max out the RAM on these machines is to do it straight from Apple, which is going to be very, very expensive because you can get up to 128 gigabytes of RAM in this computer. Again, looking at the 2017 iMac, an upgrade to 64 gigs of RAM from Apple costs $1,400, but for 64 gigs of this RAM from WWDC, you'll pay $600, which puts the price markup of Apple's RAM around 75%. Now I calculated this differently than the CPU, but I didn't see Apple charging over 200% upgrade for the RAM, so I could be wrong, but I hope Apple will stick around 75% for this upgrade. For the iMac Pro though, we're seeing up to 128 gigabytes of RAM. Crucial makes a 128 gigabyte kit with the specs Apple gave us for the RAM being used. 2666 MHz DDR4 ECC that goes for $1,747. Adding on the Apple tax brings the price of the RAM to $3,058. Crazy price, but unfortunately it's the only way to upgrade the memory in this machine. After upgrading the RAM on this machine, we're at $12,764 total. But let's move right on. Unlike the non-Pro iMacs, the iMac Pro is full SSD based. Now I think this is the perfect call for this machine. No one is going to be storing all their files on the internal drive. They're going to be using their massive storage arrays they have externally. For programs and other stuff you need to keep on the internal drive, the 4 terabytes that the Max iMac Pro has should be plenty for everything, especially since it's super fast, over 3 gigabytes per second throughput expected. This was the easiest to price out by far. Looking at the 2017 iMac, the price difference between a 1 terabyte SSD and a 2 terabyte was $800. Now that's the same price difference for the drives on the new MacBook Pro, so I'm assuming the consistency among the iMac lineup and saying an additional $800 per terabyte should be accurate, bringing the cost for 4 terabyte SSD upgrade to $3,200. Now this is only twice the cost of Samsung's 4 terabyte SATA SSD, while offering much faster speeds and including Apple's markup. Not too bad of a deal. With the SSD upgrade, the total cost of the system right now comes to $15,964. Finally, we come to the most exciting part of the iMac Pro's release, the Vega GPUs. This again was the first confirmed use of these GPUs, before it was even released to the public. Apple has a lot promised for these GPUs, but if AMD is able to pull off what they said they are, then Nvidia should be very nervous because they have a lot of competition coming to them. This also means that Apple will have a great addition to the iMac Pro. Since we haven't seen these GPUs anywhere, it makes it very difficult to estimate the upgrade price from the Vega 56 in the base model to the Vega 64 in the maxed out machine. The only difference Apple has given us is that the base model will have 8GB of memory, while the maxed out model will have 16GB. The HBM2 memory is estimated to cost $160 per 8GB being used, so $320 for the 16GB in the upgraded model. The way I went about finding my assumed price of these cards was to find the price of 8GB of GDDR5 memory, which was $80, then find what percentage of the memory made up in the cost of a GPU, using that amount of GDDR5. For this, I used the GTX 1070, which goes for about $400, with the memory making up about 20% of the cost. Factoring in the cost of HBM2 memory, I found the cost of the $800 for the Vega 56 and $1,600 for the Vega 64. These are very loose estimates, so don't take these as certain. AMD could go with a lower profit margin, and there's a lot more than memory in GPU, so we'll have to wait and see. As an estimation though, I think my logic is somewhat sound. Since there's no reference from a machine that Apple sells at the moment, I decided to use 75% as the markup. Since the difference between these two GPUs is $800, I would expect a $1,400 upgrade to max out the GPU to the Vega 64. Again, the GPU pricing is the wild card in this. It could vary pretty drastically and change the price of the system, but overall I don't think it would change the system that much for it to be noticeable. For a computer that's costing upwards of 20 grand, I don't think $600 to $800 is going to be too noticeable for the average person. Not that the average person is going to be buying a machine like this anyway though. Finally, after we max out everything that we can inside of this machine, we're able to see that my total estimated cost of the maxed out iMac Pro comes to a crazy $17,364, or about the cost of a brand new Honda Civic. Now if you want to take advantage of one of the features of this new iMac Pro, using two 5K displays alongside it, that'll run you an extra $2,600 for the two 5K displays from LG that Apple sells. This brings the total just under 20 grand for the whole setup. There's a lot of stuff you can get for $20,000. The iMac Pro is just one of them. But it offers incredible power in a beautiful design that is not matched by any other manufacturer. The question becomes, is that worth almost double than building the machine would be? This machine will be fantastic. That I can say with absolute certainty. But when the Mac Pro drops next year, I can also say with absolute certainty that the new Mac Pro will be the better computer to purchase for any niche that the iMac Pro fills. Damn, is it beautiful though. And that's all for this video, guys. This video took a long time to make, to go through, find all the prices for this stuff, and do the math on it. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. That's all for this video, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.